Passage 1, Grammar Matters. What difference does one comma make? One of my favorite, though slightly morbid examples of a necessary comma could be heard on any given evening when it is time for dinner. If I want to send a quick text to my son to let him know it is time to come out of his room for dinner, then I might type, "Time to eat, Christopher." If, however, I leave out the comma, then I would type, "Time to eat, Christopher." This has a very different meaning. I am now suggesting that my son is what's on the menu. Answers and explanations. Now, for the most part, when you're reading through the passage, you come to the underlined portion and you answer the question. There will, however, be questions where you have to read a little bit beyond where the underlined portion is, or perhaps go back and reread sections. And question number 1 is a great place to start because this question is talking about word choice. And in order to best answer which word you want to use, you must know the context of the situation. Let's talk about word choice. When you have a question where the answer choices are simply a list of words, be aware this question is really about vocabulary. So in order to answer it correctly, you need to be sure you understand the exact meaning of the answer choices. Now, sometimes we use words in a flexible way. Let's look at an example. She was so sharp that she never missed a joke. Now, the word sharp here is being used flexibly. The exact definition of sharp means having an edge that can cut, like a knife. But here we're using it flexibly to mean that she could pick up on an implied meaning, and that was why she never missed a joke. But when you look at your answer choices for a fill in the blank, the answer choices are being used by their exact definition. So if we're asked to fill in this blank with maybe pointed, serrated, or savvy, the words pointed and serrated exactly describe a knife's edge, whereas the word savvy means quick-witted. That's its exact definition. So it is the best choice to fill in the blank. She was so savvy that she never missed a joke. So let's review. We often use words flexibly. As a matter of fact, it makes for great writing. The key here is where are you thinking about words by their exact definitions, and where are you understanding them by their more flexible meanings? In the many passages that you will read, the authors will use words flexibly. And as a matter of fact, it's an important skill for you to be able to deduce what the author means. But the answer choices are only to be understood by their exact definition. Think about it. Thousands of people take this test. And in order to ensure that the answer choices are not misinterpreted, no words are ever used flexibly in the answer choices. It's exact definitions only. So let's go back to question 1. Morbid is underlined, and we've only just begun the passage, so it's really hard to know what the context is without some context. So the first thing you need to do for question 1 is read to the end of the paragraph and get a sense of what kind of word might best fill in the blank. Now go back to the sentence and read it again, and when you get to the underlined word, try to fill it in with a word of your own. One of my favorite, though slightly something examples of a necessary comma could be heard on any given evening when it is time for dinner. So it's some kind of example. Let's look at our answer choices. I want to start with choice C. Ravenous means hungry, and they've given this to you as a choice because later we talk about dinner, and so they're hoping you'll make this connection. But is my example hungry? Of course not. So that answer is wrong. Similarly, let's look at D, feeble. So maybe you're saying it's a slightly weak example, but remember, exact meanings. Is my example physically weak? No. So that answer's out, which leaves us with A and B. Eclectic is one of those words that people often misuse. The exact definition of eclectic means to come from varied sources. But this example comes from the author. That's not varied sources. So that answer is wrong. So even if you didn't know that the word morbid means pertaining to death, which makes sense because later the author jokes about eating her son, morbid is going to be your best answer because the other answers are not good. So sometimes we're selecting the correct answer, and sometimes we're just selecting the answer that is not wrong, right? Process of elimination.